So, Mike, how was your week?
I've had a really busy week, thank you. I have arranged a BBC interview on Tuesday at the practice in Devon regarding the NHS children's offering we've got. So I've been buzzing this week, thank you.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool week. Are you recording it this week or sort of next week then?
It's coming, and I've been working on it. We've registered 350 children on the Devon and Cornwall border in the NHS, seeing them for free as part of our team effort. And so all of a sudden the BBC have picked up on that, and we've gone a bit viral for us.
Cool.
On Facebook. Yeah, it's been a really exciting week. So they're coming on Tuesday, and they're going to do a big interview, and we're going to be on the 6 o'clock news in the southwest. So
cool.
It's very exciting.
Let us know when it's on, and we can put that on the Instagram page.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
nice.
People know. Yeah,
Thank you.
Bro.
So, Ali, how was your week?
Yeah, I had a really good week. Thank you. It was very busy, but actually, I was saying to you, I had my first day off yesterday where I did nothing in probably 6 months, where I just sat on a sofa and played with Lilia, and it was great. But Friday was really cool. So the BDA had a BDA Wales meeting where they invited the 3 committees that are involved in the majority of the decision making when it comes to different sides of dentistry. So the primary care, the community, and there was one more. Sorry, I'm not involved in committee stuff. But it was a leadership seminar where they were trying to workshop things that they could then publish, and then essentially a published piece of work is there as a framework for speaking to possibly Welsh Government about how we go forward. And I was there to represent private practice. So the thing that was really nice was I gave a talk on leadership in private practice, and they invited me to do this. And when I had a chat with them, I said, I've never spoken about this, and we don't have a framework for this. And they said, just talk about what you guys do. We know what you do in the practice. And I did, and I have to say, it made me really proud of the team, because everything I was saying was actually just what everyone does here. So that was really nice.
Fantastic.
And then, the registration for implant immediacy is open for intermediate implant dentists who want to go from doing basic implants to immediate implants. And our advanced course, site-specific implantology, has had sign-ups internationally now, which is awesome. So we've had someone sign up from Italy and someone sign up from South Africa.
Wow.
And there's the last couple of places left if anyone's interested. So yeah, it's been a great week. Thank you.
That was a very positive week. Well, I officially signed up for my implant course, so I'm starting my implant journey.
And which one did you pick?
So after our chat with Leanne last week, that's the one I signed up for. I thought it was really important as well. I like the idea of having a woman be in charge of a course as well.
Cool.
In the theme of our women in dentistry. So I'm very excited to start.
So I have to say now, so Leanne's based in Edinburgh, and you're in Cardiff.
Right.
How sustainable is this going to be?
Not that sustainable. Yes, there will have to be a few flights, but
Okay.
I will work it out. Maybe a little bit of carbon offsetting.
Yeah. Okay. You'll be running on the you'll be running our generator in your running shoes. Cool.
Yes.
No, that's awesome, because you've been looking for a course for a while. You've been watching Leanne for a while. Was it meeting her and talking to her that kind of inspired you?
Yes, I found her really engaging, and I think I've got to that point where I was like, I know I'm ready to take that next sort of career jump, and I think everything just sort of fell into place, sort of one go there. So
Awesome.
Yes, I'm very
Well done,
excited.
bro. So how's she going to mentor you all the way from Edinburgh?
Well, you're going to help.
Okay, great. Okay. No,
Just
it's
to let
great.
you know.
Well, I hope you don't mind me saying, and Mum wouldn't mind me saying, but this is perfect timing, and that's been part of the decision, is that your mum came in and could do with a few implants.
Yes.
And the one thing you need if you're going to start placing implants is a guinea pig.
Yeah.
And literally, the hardest thing about starting an implants is finding patients, and your family need implants, and it's the perfect opportunity to learn implants and start. So
She does actually listen to this podcast, so a little shout out there.
yeah. What are you thinking?
Working on your own mother as your first implant. I mean, that's brave. That's very brave.
Has anyone ever been sued working on their own mum?
Fair one. But there's worse than suing, isn't there?
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the voice that we heard at the beginning was Mike Hesketh. Mike Hesketh graduated from Leeds Dental School in 2004 and embarked on an adventurous journey by joining the armed forces as a Royal Marine. He served in Afghanistan experience that, while challenging, profoundly shaped his character. After leaving the Marines, Mike seamlessly transitioned his skills into the business world. Together with his wife, Lara, Mike took over Exeter Dental Centre, a modest private practice. In just 3 years, they transformed it into a thriving business, generating over £3 million annually. And after their success, they sold the practice to travel with their children. Now, Mike and Lara are pouring their energy into a new venture, Dartmoor Dental. Although it's still in the early stages, it's already on track to achieve the same impressive turnover as their previous practice. In addition to his dental ventures, Mike also runs Hesketh Healthcare, a consultancy dedicated to helping others build their dream businesses, as well as having a dental accountancy firm. And we are fortunate enough to meet Mike when he presented to us at the IDAW conference. And we are honoured that he's joined us at the practice today. And I'm just going to say Hesketh Healthcare is very hard to say.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, thank you, Mike, for joining us, because Flo and I both spoke about it. I don't know if you had a chance to hear the episode where we had just
Finished.
Yes, and we were
thank you. Very
and
kind.
had a great day with you, actually. And then I've been hearing so much about you because I've spoken about my friend Gareth and Zach, who own Smile Stories, and they've been working with you, and they've been saying how instrumental you've been in giving them a framework for their practice.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to have you here.
Well, it's brilliant to be back in Wales as a North Walian. It's great to be driving up from Devon and coming to Cardiff, and in such a lovely practice as well. It is phenomenal what you've built here. It's really impressive. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, no, thank you for coming. So going back to sort of the beginning, how was studying at Leeds?
Leeds, I joined really early. I just turned 18 and I did the 5-year degree and I loved it. And anyone that studied in Leeds will know, obviously, it's a party city. Around about my 3rd year, I went and sat the interview process called the Admiralty Interview Board for the Royal Navy. And so the Royal Navy paid for my studying. I wasn't the best student in the world. I did a lot more football and a lot more sort of sport. But I joined the Royal Navy as a cadet. And then I was tied in for 7 to 8 years afterwards, after I qualified. And because they were paying me a salary while I was at university, I ended up having to go to work 2 weeks after qualifying. So it didn't get me travelling in. And I was straight into the world of work, straight from Leeds down to the south coast and straight into the Royal Navy as a VT, vocational trainee at the time.
Was it a big decision, that 7 to 8 year commitment to sign up?
It felt like forever. And I was really worried because when I started the application process, it was only 5 years. And then they extended it because they realised they were spending a lot on doctors and dentists. But no, I was already halfway down it. My brother was with the Royal Marine Reserves in Merseyside. His best friend was in the Special Forces. We used to go drinking together in Leeds. And he said, I think the Royal Marines have a dentist, so maybe you can get into the Royal Navy and then get into the Royal Marines somehow. And that's exactly what happened in the end, to be honest. So, yeah.
So why did you go into dentistry to begin with?
I was good at sciences at school, and I enjoyed chemistry and biology, and my stepfather was very sort of influential on my life, and my father was killed in a car crash when I was 8 years old, so my stepfather came along and gave us a bit of a steer, and I'm forever grateful, and I'm very grateful for the career that dentistry has given me and all the opportunities. I think when you get to my age now, which is early 40s, you look back and think, do you know, I'm very grateful for our profession and the fact that it's such a wonderful profession to be in. It's fantastic. So,
no problem. I'm really interested about sort of that military dentistry. It was something I looked at for a little bit.
Yeah.
So how much sort of on the front line and things were you when you were sort of a dentist out there?
I can imagine looking at you. Very sporty, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like your long distance endurance running. You do a lot of endurance running in the Royal Marines.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a career option, I was in the Navy between the age of 22 and 30. And so it gives you the qualifications with the Royal Colleges. So I did the London and I did the Edinburgh course. I did Max Fax for a year and I was paid a full dentist salary. So I did head and neck cancer and I did, facial trauma surgery. The support network for the VT was fantastic. You get to travel around the world to treat children abroad. And you get top lecturers and you did it a week at a block at a time. So I felt vocational training was good. And then I roughly spent 50% of my time doing dentistry and then 50% being an officer, being a leader, working with the Royal Marine Commandos for 5 of those years, and getting to do the commando course. which is the hardest sort of infantry course in the world. Which culminates in a 30-miler, which you'd appreciate, over 8 hours running over Dartmoor. So
Wow.
all of that was very formative in my early stages, and I think being an officer, I did leadership training at Britannia Royal Naval College, did leadership training at the Defence Academy I did a third of an MSc in leadership with international students, and you're just exposed to leadership, culture, brand awareness, which we know about and we talk about in dentistry at an early stage. And I was straight away in charge of dental practices, and then I led a dental practice at sea on the biggest ship in the Navy off the coast of the Congo in the Sierra Leone. And we're at sea for 3 months, and part of that journey was soldiering in the jungle, which is the hardest type of soldiering you can do. I did that with Ant Middleton, you know, the SAS chap? Yeah. So Ant and I were in the jungle together. And then when I came back, I went through the commando course.
Sounds like you're on I'm a Celeb.
I
in
know.
the jungle together.
It gets better. It gets better, right? Because then, honestly, that generation ended up doing loads of things on telly. Did you ever see 14 Peaks on Netflix? It's about the chap that climbed all the mountains over 8,000 feet really quickly, Nims Purger. Did the commando course with him, and he laughed all the way through it. The hardest infantry course going. He then went on to be in the Special Boat Service. So he was one of those characters. So Nims and I were on the commando course, and then we deployed to Afghanistan. And when I deployed to Afghanistan, I went as a dentist with the commandos. But you end up being an officer, so I did watchkeeping in the evening. I did dentistry in Camp Bastion in the desert during the day. And then I also was the casualty liaison officer, so I stood at the end of the bed of my friends that I'd been at sea with prior as they were injured, triple amputees, and I would then go and give the med brief to sort of 30 to 40 gnarly looking chaps wanting to know, you know, what was left of the individual that was hurt. And that was quite hard. That was a really hard 3 months. The second 3 months, which sounds odd, was better because I went out on the ground. So instead of meeting the helicopters in the hospital, they put me in charge of a team of Gurkha engineers, some of the female nurses, and we tried to bring some light relief to the civilian population around a place called Sangin. And we were in the forward operating bases outside there. It was in 2007, so it was when it was really bad. And unfortunately, every road move we went on, or every patrol we went on, was contacted with the enemy. So we were caught in ambushes, and so I became a medic. I did the paramedics course before I went, PHTLS, pre-hospital trauma life support course, and the battles course, which is basic, a battlefield advanced trauma life support. So the mechanisms of injury was, instead of car accidents in civilian world, was blast injuries and gunshots. So I did all of that before I went. So and I was commando trained, so I knew how to soldier. And so I was a dentist with an American dental kit, and I'd jump on a Chinook and land in a forward operating base. And I'd actually provide dental care. I trained all the medics up on how to place calcinol. So they were living out there for a long time. So I did all this before going out there, and so I was ready, and I became a medic. So as the guys were shot at or blown up, or the vehicles were destroyed, I would be stretcher carrying or trying to render life-saving aid to people. So that was better than being in the hospital, oddly, at the end of the bed. And so that was very formative. It taught me a lot about life, and you know, and this is where I said it gets better with name dropping, because Prince Harry was there. So I was in a tent with Prince. You know, it goes up levels. This goes up levels. So Prince Harry was, he didn't go where we went. We were with a spear, right at the tip of the spear. But he was a very good soldier, and he was in Musakala up the road. But and it was very sad the way that Afghan ended. But we tried to bring medical aid. Unfortunately, you can't really do that in a hot combat zone. So saw a lot of things, been a lot of helicopters and things.
Wow.
So there's going to be people listening who might be dentists or dental students who are considering a military career. And I guess the question I have from all this sounds incredible, like so much opportunity to grow as a person and do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. What influence do you think it had on your clinical journey through all of this?
It made me comfortable with everything that was going to walk through the door. I think it was a distraction from my clinical dentistry. And then when I was 30, I was leaving and I'd just finished the Max Fax. And so I think the Navy gave me everything that I wanted, and I gave everything to the Navy. You know, I'd done my bit, I'd been out and abroad. So I wanted to leave. Lara was pregnant with Poppy at the time, and so I wanted to leave. But clinically, I did more courses when I left straight away on the gardening leave. I quickly went to the lawn deck and did some more courses, but I think it was a distraction from dentistry, and because it was all about leadership and running the team. But so I haven't done implants. I'm not on implant courses. I'm a general dentist, but I feel like I can deal with anything that comes through the door.
So how much clinical dentistry have you done then since leaving? Because this leadership training has set you up to, you know, Flo mentioned the type of businesses that you've built, which is incredible. How much have you been involved clinically through this journey?
So in Exeter, we wanted to control the money. So I was clinical 4 days a week.
Okay.
At the beginning, we bought from 3 partners. It was a sort of a rundown practice, and they won't mind saying that they hadn't invested in it. They were in their mid-60s. They wanted to retire, so we gave them all their money and let them go. And each one of myself and 2 associates I recruited took a list on, and it was just general dentistry.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I was clinical for 3 years of the just under 5 years that we owned the Exeter Dental Centre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, I mean, because I thought I'd bring it up because it must have been a difficult transition to go from what you were doing in the military to then having 4 days a week in general practice all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was there difficult times in that transition?
Well, all my patient base in the military were fit and well individuals from 18 years old to 40. So I hadn't seen the 2 spectrums. The practice in Exeter was private, so there weren't many children. But you know, you're dealing with a lot of older patients. And the odd thing is that the practice had the lift. I didn't realise how many people in the general population were less mobile. The lift was critical, you know. Things like that, you're blind to. You don't know much when you come out of the military or the real world. You know, you don't know much about business. You've seen leadership. You've seen how that can work. But, you know, in the civilian world, I would say it's a lot harder. And the clinical work, I certainly had to get my skates on with getting going with the clinical work. Yeah.
Just going back a little bit, you said you ran a practice on a boat. How was that? Were they moving around while you were doing
well, it was the biggest ship at HMS Ocean. Yeah,
I think it was stable.
well,
because that's what I was picturing. Is that everything slowly as you're trying to do a filling?
I think it had about 400 crew, and then it had the air crew. So it took off Merlin helicopters. So it had about 250 of those, and then it had an embarked force of Royal Marines, and so there was about 700-800 people. So and we were away for 4 months, so they're going to have dental injuries. And so in the dental practice, I remember the light just used to drift.
So actually, okay.
I got that wrong.
On the end of the arm, yeah. So that was interesting, but that was before I did Max Fax as well, and before I did Afghan. So as a GDP, there isn't any help coming. A couple of those months as well, the ship went dark, so we hid basically off the coast of Africa. There was a civil war in the Congo, and then a load of people embarked on our ship, and we were going to set a base up in Kinshasa to evacuate the British embassy. That's another story.
Wow.
There was a stabbing on board. It was funny, but dentistry-wise, the light moved a bit.
Stabbing sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
So you've obviously been incredibly successful, sort of growing sort of these businesses. What do you put some of that like success down to? Has it been sort of that military leadership training, or?
That's very kind. Yeah, I think it was. And then my wife Lara. So we found this practice in Exeter, and I'm happy leading people. I'm happy building the culture, and then Lara was key to the brand. And also the business processes, because I didn't know anything about it.
What was Lara's background?
Lara's a trained actress, then had done teaching, and then had done estate agency, and then was in London as a talent manager, working with sports talent and TV talent. And that's a cutthroat business where you're getting with boxers and flying around the world with boxers. And so that industry, you know, to make money is hard, and it's in central London, and it's competitive, and and it's quite glamorous. And so she couldn't believe how much money was coming across the till in a dental practice that was, to her, was really, didn't look like this. You know, it was really poor. It was, you know, it was really underinvested. And so she saw the opportunity to do something different. At the time, it was 2012. There was no Google advertising. The social media was in its infancy. It's 12 years ago now. And so the whole of Exeter as a city was wide open. And Lara had seen that opportunity. And we worked very much as a team on the business. And Lara's the creative director behind that and basically the standard keeper. And I do all the awkward conversations with staff.
Yeah. Okay, great. You're the bad cop.
Well, I've got a story about that. Not really. The captain of the ship shouldn't be the bad cop. The second in command should be the bad cop.
Okay. So you're second in command?
No, sorry.
She is the captain of the ship.
Yeah, we're joint captains, put it that way. We're in charge of the morale. But the practice manager should
I see.
really, yeah.
Okay.
But that's a philosophy for my consulting clients that I talk to. And I spend a lot of time with my consulting clients talking about being emotional in business and when not to be, and not taking it personally, and treating the practice as a third entity, as a limited company, and when they shouldn't be, losing their sort of cool.
Do you see that as a theme that when people own practices, they treat it like it's their baby, and that gets in the way of things then?
Yeah, it does. So much so that when I got to Exeter, I dropped 4 days, 3 days, 2 days. So in the third year, I was only doing 2 days dentistry. It went to 7 chairs. We opened it 7 days a week. And there's a set rota pattern that we do around that. And we were gaining 200 new private patients a month. So it was crazy busy. By then, we built up a team doing fancy implants like you do, not me. And we'd built up this huge team. So I was down to 2 days dentistry and I was leading it. Like I say, running a business 7 days a week back in 2013, 2014 was no mean feat, and dealing with all those new patients. But yeah, it was quite a growth journey that the business was on. But I stepped back and I just did the leadership basically across the group. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously that was 2012, 2013, and you're sort of doing it again. What is sort of different now in this sort of like current climate for sort of building that practice?
It's so different right now. Things have come on so fast. The marketing element is now everyone's, paying Google, everyone's doing Facebook, everyone's doing Instagram. The rise of digital dentistry, the macro climate has changed completely. With the interest rates rising, you've got to think the financial crash was 2008, and the interest rates went down so low so we could borrow as much as we want.
Yeah.
So it was almost like playing in a completely different pitch to now. So Dartmoor Dental is in a very different situation to the Exeter Dental Centre was back then. The growth of Exeter was sort of 300,000 to 400,000 a year. So we took it from about 500,000 turnover to over 2.5 million. We bought it for 280,000 and we sold it for 3.2 million. And we did we did that growth within 4.5 years. Team went crazy. It was over 2 floors. We took it to 6. The whole thing to the point where practices, other coaches and consultants would send their clients to the Exeter Dental Centre. So I had a coach in 2012, only for 6 months to give me a roadmap of how the real world worked. And then they contacted me and said, look, no one's getting growth like that. Can I pay you and could you host them for the day? And so we hosted 6 practices. One of them was 10 Dental. Do you know Martin Wanadoo and Nick Sisodia? Yeah. They were going to do a big practice, call centres like we had, advertising. And I love Martin and Nick. And they came down and we had a great, since then we've been really good friends. And they came down for the day to just see what Exeter was about, to pick up some tips and tricks. And that was the journey, the beginning of the coaching and consultancy. Yep. Sort of happened by accident, really. Yep. I was at a loose end. And then I wanted to formalise my training because I don't really like being unqualified in things. So I did an MBA, a Masters in Business at Exeter University. And that was for a year whilst I was owning the practice. And it was in that year that we decided to sell it. Yeah.
So did you find, so the world changed between that practice and the more recent one?
Yeah.
Did you guys find that you kind of understood and learned how the world is changing and how it applies to business there?
Yeah.
And the second part to the question is, do you feel like now that there is maybe not a formula, but there is now, you figured out the roadmap to apply to practices to help them get there?
Well, we went travelling around the world, and then the pandemic hit after that. So we had a couple of false starts with things that we were going to do. And then all of a sudden, people asked me for help. They said, look, how did you do the Exeter thing? And so my consultancy was built off that. And then I thought, was Exeter a fluke? Or are we a one-trick pony? We're in a city centre. We're open 7 days a week. It's one way we've done it. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe we should buy another practice and have a test case, because people were ringing me and I didn't feel I knew about digital dentistry.
Yeah.
I didn't know about Instagram and the rise of all that. And so all of a sudden I felt like I wanted to get back in the game. And we've bought Dartmoor Dental in 2022, so exactly 10 years after we bought Exeter. And funny old thing, the growth is the same. It's probably faster in Dartmoor. It was turning over sort of around 800,000 when we bought it, and the first year was 1.6 million. Second year, we just got the accounts, is 2.1 million. And then this year, first quarter, if it carries on like it is, we're going to go to sort of 2.4, 2.5 million. It's an 8-chair practice. But we made it hard for ourselves. We put it in a town. Well, it's in a town. It's an old practice that's in a town. It's a grade 2 listed building. So it sinks money. And it's, honestly, it's an hour from my house. I couldn't have made it harder for myself. And then all of the surgeries needed replacing. So we've done 6 of them so far. And then the good thing about it, though, is the people. So the patients are lovely, and the staff that we've inherited and then also brought on. And we've just built a culture around the Dartmoor Dental. So there are some consistencies to the Exeter journey, and then there are some differences. And then I've worked with about 50 practice owners on a one-to-one basis. And I've also ran Ashley Latter's entrepreneurs course for 4 years. And so I imbibe knowledge from those guys. And then I also share and direct and help and coach and consult with them about how they can have the same growth.
In different circumstances.
In different circumstances. So mine's in a town now, in a rural environment on the border of Devon and Cornwall. There are no dentists. There are no clinicians. So how are we full with 8 chairs? How are we full of clinicians? And how do I get CVs sent to me? So how do we do that where there are no dentists, where we're told there's no dentists? What are the relationships that we build with the university, with the local community, PR, I talked about the BBC.
Yeah.
How do we attract clinicians to come and want to work for us like we did with Exeter? And that's the same with Dartmoor. So I talk to clients about this and how they can win the war by winning the clinicians. But it hasn't been plain sailing at all. There's been some mistakes along the way.
And I guess that's what you've learned from, because
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are there 3 types of practices? You've named one, for example. So one is a rural practice that's struggling to attract staff, patients, and feels like the location is maybe the whole issue.
Okay.
Are there 2 other circumstances where it might not be what people think it is, and you might be able to help with strategies for them to be able to achieve growth, where it seems like their circumstances are the issue?
We've deliberately made Dartmoor's in a hard place, and I'm not a big believer in sort of excuses about circumstance. you know?
No, I know. That's why I'm asking.
I'm not. I've seen practices in the field in Cornwall. I work with clients on seaside towns in 4 corners of the country, in Northern Ireland, in Scotland, and there's one uniformity. It's about leadership and being responsible as the owner of the clinic for everything that happens in that clinic, and taking that responsibility seriously. And then also how to invest. I call them 4 pillars. So we talk about leadership, we talk about financial command and control, infrastructure, and then branding. And a lot of the time they do one of those quite well, but then the other 3. So I audit in my head and I'm talking to people. And I hope that if you get this 80-20 rule, if you get those 4 pillars good or solid, you'll probably be all right. And you can get growth of between 300,000 to 500,000 a year, like we are doing. I've got to tread gently with owners, okay? But I have to speak truth to power, and I say, look, I think that way you've gone with the business is probably causing these issues that's giving you sleepless nights, and maybe we need to steer it slightly differently. And so I'm gentle. You don't get anywhere, especially in the Royal Marines, by being a bull in a china shop, because you've got 700 alpha males. Everyone's got degrees and Olympic gold medals sometimes. You can't dominate people, so you've got to be clever with your leadership, and you've got to walk quietly and softly. And so a lot of the time owners of practices, they just need gentle steering and sort of showing. And I say, I've seen that mistake before. I've made that mistake. Don't go down that route. Be careful. A lot of the time, say skin, for instance, skin services, everyone gets tempted by skin. And I've seen practices lose money on skin unless it's set up perfectly. I'm not saying don't do it. I've seen practices make £1 million doing skin. But it sometimes feels like a no-brainer. Let's do skin. And it's almost like, I call it the Good Ideas Club. The Good Ideas Club.
I'm just loving you're calling it skin.
Yeah.
Facial aesthetics.
Facial aesthetics. Yeah. That's how little I know about it. Okay, yeah, that's how little I know about it.
How bad
Just
is
do
it
some
that
skin.
I totally understood that, and it made sense to me to call it skin.
No, it's fine.
Well, you can tell you have more training than we do in this, yeah.
And I think you need to believe in it and be passionate about it, you know, and understand it. And people playing at it is just, it doesn't work. And people, I call it the Good Ideas Club. So to answer your question, I see a lot of coaches and consultants come around with good ideas, you know, and they're probably, I see them and they've not run a practice properly, you know, and they've not, maybe not owned a practice, but that's fine, but they've not run a practice even, you know, and how can they be advising people if they've not run a practice properly? Like in Exeter, the team run Exeter, and then in Dartmoor, the same team I had to ship down to run Dartmoor, to turn the ship, and people walking around talking like they know how to run a practice and doing practice managers courses, and they can't do it, and they don't have the technical knowledge, and I see it multiple times, and I'm just quite blunt about it, because this is people's wealth and their family and their money and their children, you know, and there's like I say, it's charlatans out there sometimes, you know, you just got to be really careful. But I'm open to being challenged all the time about what I get wrong, and I'm not perfect, you know, we get it wrong, but we sort of kind of move in the right direction, which is good.
Does it ever go wrong sort of with that whole team building and delegation approach sort of?
Sometimes I pick the wrong people in some team leader positions, but with experience, I feel like we can work with most people. I also think that when you say it goes wrong as well, is that you're always going to hemorrhage money, okay, in a business owner. Any business owner that doesn't think they're losing any money, it's always like a bath, there's holes in it. And you're just trying to plug the holes as best you can and not be silly. But if anyone thinks that they're not wasting money when they own a business, it's tosh. You know, we all make bad mistakes. It's minimising them, which is critical. And that's what we try to do with all of our businesses. We minimise them. But some of the mistakes can be, like for instance, there was a clawback for the NHS in Dartmoor that was just missed right at the beginning. And it was just, you know, it was £130,000. Now that's my responsibility. I have to put that on the line. Luckily, I can, you know, but so there's errors with appointing people who don't know how to run a practice, be a practice manager, who don't have the technical knowledge of how to run it. And I see it with clients a lot of the time with some people that they're paid a lot of money as managers. You've got to be really careful with who you're paying that money to and trusting them. Yeah.
So is that something you're able to help your clients with how, when it's appropriate for them to get a manager in, with recruitment of that manager? Are these things that you're part of that decision making for the people that you work with?
Yeah, it's critical, especially on the leadership positions and the management. I work. We interrogate the decisions really carefully against cash flow, and make sure that against culture as well. Is the brand in place before they're appointing key personnel, before they're relinquishing control of their small business? Have they got the right person in place? And so we work with clients all the time to do that. And sometimes there'll be 2-chair practices that are going to 4. There'll be clients that turn over £10 million at the moment. Like Zach and Gareth, for instance, in Smile Stories, they're very successful. We both know them. You live with them at university. And they have got a massive following, really fantastic cosmetic clinic, and they're doing an innovative patient journey. And they're at the stage now where they need to build their management team around them, and we have to tread really carefully because what they've built is special, and we can't get that wrong. And so the next hires are critical because they've got their base team all in place and their team leaders. Now, how do we get them to not have to be, they're 2 years into their business, how do we get them to not have to, you know, be doing everything in a small business? How do we get them to live a better life, have more time, get down to the level of amount of dentistry they want to do? And this is what I do with all of my clients, whether it's central London, you know, Midlands, wherever on the coast. Is how do we get them doing the right amount of dentistry, but they can have faith that the right metrics are being monitored in their business. And
Brilliant.
Being someone here that doesn't own a dental practice, but it sounds, you saying all the mistakes are it comes down to you. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. If you are thinking of being a practice owner, but you sort of worried about, like, in the future at some point, I'd like to own a practice. But hearing that, I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I can cope with all that.
For you? Sorry.
Go for it.
The beauty of it is, if you're responsible for everything goes wrong, you're in control of all of this. So you can trace it back to a decision you made, and then you can make different decisions that lead to different outcomes. I found it very helpless being an associate. I really didn't like not being in control of things. I don't mind things being my fault, and they are my fault ultimately, I agree. But I really like that I have the power to be able to go, you know what, actually, let's do it this way. So, yeah, I mean, I'll let Mike tell you what he thinks, but for me, don't let it put you off. It's the best thing about it.
The last thing I want to do is put you off, okay? It's slightly trickier now financially because of the global economic situation, okay? But if you've got the drive to do it, and I think everyone should have a coach of some sort. I'm going to do a course. I need to do this, which is a setting up in practice course, whether you're buying something. And I'm going to get everyone together, because I get contacted a lot from people, and they're not ready for bespoke coaching. It's reasonably, there's fees involved with my bespoke coaching. So I'm going to do a course for associates looking at it, probably around Easter next year, okay? As we expand the consultancy, as Dartmoor needs me less, then we'll do our own consultancy. So it's a shame that it's scary. I think a lot of the problems, we as human beings look for someone to blame or something to blame. And what Ali's then really nicely articulated is that ultimately it was a decision we made as owners. And so you can't sit there and tell me that you wear your heart on your sleeve and you're emotional around your business and you're annoyed with this person in your organisation, when in reality you hired them or you trained them. And it's basically extreme responsibility and being aware of the extreme responsibility that you need to fathom. But like, I often don't criticise the team. I talk about Dartmoor Dental Limited as a legal entity. I talk about it in a third party. I say, what would Dartmoor want? What does the brand want? You know, what does North Cardiff Implant Centre want? You know, what do we... And then all of a sudden it's not personal, and it's not Ali getting upset, it's not me getting upset with an associate's behaviour. It's not what Mike wants, it's what's best for Dartmoor Dental. And so all of a sudden my stress levels drop because it was my responsibility, it was my fault. Okay? There's no point in falling out with associates. There's no point in falling out with nurses, with the reception team. There's a lot of point with making quick decisions if they just don't work and they don't know what they're talking about, which what obviously I experienced in Dartmoor. But you have to be decisive, but even when they go, you just say, go. Okay, just go. Just leave, because and go with good wishes and pay them their notice. And stop treating the money in the practice as your personal money. I know it builds your personal wealth, but stop treating it as your own personal money out of your pocket. You're not paying that associate that needs to leave, or that practice manager or general manager that needs to leave. You're not paying them, it's the company that's paying them. So that's what I mean, is you're the leader, you take responsibility for everything that happens on that ship.
How did you sort of build up that mental? I'm assuming it's from the military, to be honest, but that sort of that getting to that point of that resilience with it.
I think it's imbibing that when you see such leadership under really austere environments and really challenging environments, that you realise that you can't but take information on from these great leaders that are far in excess of me. I just think that dentistry is in crying out for strong leadership, and so just happened that I was really okay at it, and so Exeter was a wide open playing field and we could just dominate it. But leadership is really, really undervalued. And I would say that anyone taking on a practice, the best thing you can do is probably some leadership courses. I've done a lot of formal leadership courses over the years, to the point now where all the courses are the same to me, the content's the same. But if you haven't been through them,
then it's
You don't
new,
know
and
what
it's
it
then it's new,
yeah.
and you develop that leadership, and then all of a sudden you'll calm down about the risks. And let's be honest, the industry is crying out for clinicians. It's the NHS is an issue that can send practices to really struggle because it doesn't pay enough. But you want to try and help people. But ultimately, if you're in a private practice, then you can control your costs. Solely private practice, you shouldn't really be any risk to you to setting up. I'm not trying to get you to lose an associate.
No. And actually, to be honest, one of the things that we ask everyone who starts here, regardless of what role they're coming in, is what is your dream? I always use Dawn as the example. Dawn was a dental nurse who came in, and her dream was to join the police, and she had tried many times. And she was saying, no, I want to build a career in dentistry. I said, Dawn, what do you want? I really want to join the police. Okay, here you go. There's no notice period if the police call. And 6 months in, the police called, and she went. And we sent her with goodwill. And the next person who came in had heard about Dawn and said, this is a place that cares. So when Flo came in, we said, Flo, what do you want? And Flo said, I want to change sustainability in dentistry, and I might want my own practice. So we've been working together on these goals. And the idea is, Flo, give me somewhere to refer work to. Because hopefully if we grow and we aren't able to maintain our implants, we need someone we can trust to send these to. And so, our thing is always to create the win-wins. And actually, if Flo can go do implants and wants to set up an implant practice, what do I always say to you? Set up next door. I have no problem with it. I genuinely have no problem with it, because I do think that there's so much to go around, and we've become so protectionist in dentistry where we're worrying about it. But also, I love the phrase someone said to me once, I can give you the recipe, but you'll never make the sauce. And we're each making our own sauce,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So,
not one practice is the same that I work with, and it's a really good thought process that you've got, and it's not competitive really. Like I said, there's 6 or 7 practices in Tavistock. And it's not really competitive. It's like playing golf, running a dental practice. You're in charge of your own game. That's it, And a lot of the time, people don't have the energy or the creativity to improve their own game. Okay, you improve your own game in healthcare, and patients will come. Okay, and that includes all of the spheres. All the way through, all the spinning plates. There isn't one magic bullet to this. It's improving your game all the way through it, and you work hard on that, which is what you invariably do when you put all your money on the line. It will be a success. It'll be fine.
With the leadership courses, is there any you'd recommend?
I think the Henley Business School, I really enjoyed studying there. You work with a lot of high-grade executives. I did the professional certificate in executive coaching, and I know they do a leadership element. I would say university level, not possibly an MBA, because it kind of, if you're already buying a practice, it's a lot of work, and you're not, it's very confirmatory rather than revolutionary in your knowledge. But I would go to one of the universities for a leadership course, some of the ones in London, the executive leadership courses, and just get the fundamentals of leadership. It'll calm you down and stop you taking things personally as an associate. It's transitioning to be a principal. You'll still be wary of everything, but it will calm you down.
I love that. That's a great tip for associates who are thinking about that journey, isn't it?
Do that and then see how you get on with it. You might not enjoy leadership, so then maybe you want to think hard about buying a practice and putting all your money on the line. You might have all the clinical skills, but you think, actually, I'm really struggling with this leadership element.
Would you say that, I know you said that there's foundational pillars, but would you say that the majority of the skill that you need if you're going to be a successful business owner is in leadership?
Yeah, I would. But that's a cliche for anyone coming from the military. They think it starts and finishes with leadership.
Okay.
So that's why it's only one of the 4 pillars.
Okay.
So the financial command and control, that's why it's critical. Branding, which, let's be honest, I'm a, straight down the line, sort of not creative individual. So branding for me is really difficult. And then infrastructure and making sure that the facility and the slow project management of building such a fantastic clinic and making sure that the infrastructure is in place. So there are other elements, but for me, I'm always going to go towards leadership because of my background. But Exeter wouldn't have been possible without Lara and her creativity, and also the organisation and infrastructure. Exeter wouldn't have been possible without Karina, and it wouldn't have been possible without in Dartmoor either, and the team there. It would have been really difficult. So there's more to it than that. But if you're missing the leadership element,
It's hard to make up.
It's really hard to make up because you'll have high staff turnover, you know, and it's accepting that you will make mistakes even as a leader. I say sorry a lot to my staff, to the junior staff. I walk the floors, I talk to them a lot. I say sorry, you know, I apologise. I'm quick to apologise. Yeah. It's trying to be humble with it, really. Humility and not letting hubris get in the way. You know, we make some mistakes with the team at Dartmoor and you move on. And don't let it, you know, get you down. You just keep moving.
In general, would you say it is good? I know, 'cause I know you said you're obviously doing some clinical again.
Yeah.
Like, I do really like where I've worked. I like it when the practice owner is involved in things, because I do think it's one of the only ways you really can see everything.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have stopped clinical at Dartmoor so soon, because you just pick up on things. You know what's missing, you know what's broken, you know what's not working. You can see the staff, the body language, you see the morale, and as a leader, you're in charge of that. So get down there and work and do some clinical work. And you can, as the owner, you can do whatever clinical work you want. So yeah, I do. I think Exeter was just a beast. You know, it was 7 days a week, and it just, you know, everyone was on a rota, a 5-week rota, and I'm quite happy to talk everyone through how to do that.
That's very intense.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where you get days off in the week, so it's great. You know, you only work 5 days a week, but it happened to be one weekend in 5 you'd work. And instead of, because I always find this Saturday thing, if you do one Saturday in 3, it mucks up 1 in 3 of your weekends. So just, why don't you muck up your weekend properly and just do Saturday, Sunday, and then have 2 days off, either the Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, or the Friday and the Monday. And that was the logic behind it. And then all the staff were like, yeah, actually, that's better. And then sometimes days off in the week when everyone else is working or at school is better for the team. You know, they can follow their passions. And actually, working in a clinic on the weekend, a Saturday, Sunday, just doing a root canal at 2 o'clock on a Sunday, it's quite peaceful because there's not 7 chairs turning and burning, you know? It's just the way we did it. But.
Talk about peacefulness. Where did you go travelling?
Oh, yeah, that was great. We went easy places. The children were 5 and 3, and they came back when they were 6 and 4. We just went to really simple. I'd done enough dangerous places in Africa, in the Congo, in Sierra Leone, and Afghanistan, and I went to Russia as well, whenever. So I just said to, and we went really slow. So we'd spend 2, 3, 4 weeks in cities, Singapore, Australia, typical, Australia, New Zealand, and then Cook Islands, and then Hawaii, saw a volcano going off, that was great. And then California and British Columbia and stuff.
Cool.
And I would say that was the best time of my life. I was 35, I hadn't had a break, we'd done quite a lot of intense things, going from that experience in the military to then having quite an intense ride with Exeter Dental Centre was, you know, a lot of work. And then I was 30, I was tired and I was ready. And Lara and I, you know, it takes a toll, you know, being away a lot in the military. We've been together since we were 23, 24. And so, you know, it was a lot of pressure on marriage, and, you know, we had children, so we went travelling, and then for 9 months, and now, you know, it's just brilliant. You know, you just get to know each other again, different phase of your life. And so I would say, you know, we do this wealth generation or small businesses to support our families, you know, and that's what it's all about. So then, yeah, it costs a lot of money to go travel around the world and a lot of time off. And but my financial advisor, I've really got to plug Thomas Dixon. Do you know Thomas Dixon?
This is something that you taught us about on that day.
Yeah. I really love Thomas. He's a great listener. And so Thomas said to me, he said, you will need to go again. That's not enough money, because we had debt on the business and stuff like that. You will need to do another practice, and you will do something. But obviously the pandemic got in the way, and a few false starts there really. But yeah, we always knew we'd have to go again and start another one. So we got this one going around about age 40.
So the thing I got from when you were talking about him was, you need someone to both be able to give you permission to do these big things that change your life. And you need someone, so that's their reassurance that it will be okay. And then you need someone to tell you how much you're going to have to do again.
Yes. So Thomas does a financial planning rather than advising. And he'll take you out to 100 and he'll say, right, okay, these are the things you'll spend money on in your life. That's it. And it's really disconcerting because he puts it on one A board. And then he just writes out what the only things you'll ever spend and when you'll spend them. And he says it's just a pattern. He has 300 practice owners that are clients, And he says, you think you'll go travelling around the world when you're 65, 70? You won't. You know, you'll do a little bit, but you won't. You know, and so he had clients that put £1 million into pensions, and they didn't take their children away. And always this stuck with me. And he said they didn't take their children away, and they put £1 million in, and they'll never draw that pension. They never need it because they were successful practice owners. They owned 3 or 4 properties, and so they sacrifice the now. But you need someone who uses software, who uses intelligent listening to what you want out of your life, to understand that journey. So I would say that Thomas helping us with our personal money, alongside Jodie and my accounts team helping us with the business money, dovetail really well. And that's a really critical, it enables the relationship building. Yeah. Money's not everything, but it enables the ability to travel together, to, you know, educate your children how you want to. So it's important. And, you know, sometimes things go wrong. Like the pandemic was bad financially. The inflation, the cost of living crisis, the interest rate rises now are really hurting. We're essentially a new business owner in Dartmoor. It's really painful. You know, it's not a guaranteed certain, and you can't time everything. And, you know, we'll make mistakes. We put too much effort into the NHS contract. It costs too much money. But you learn, you know, and you put that through.
If I may say that, I got in touch with Thomas after I spoke to you. Oh, yeah. And I'd recommend everyone reads the book he sent me, Enough.
Yeah. How much is enough or something like that?
Yeah. And it's a great book that I think everyone should read. Doesn't matter if you're a practice owner or not, for you to understand why you need to think about doing the traveling and spending time with your family and doing the things you love now. And then you need to engage people like him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, obviously Afghan, unfortunately we lost 3 men. And one of the chaps, John, the last time I heard him was on a radio. He was a friend of mine, and I heard him on a radio in a different base, and he was evacuating Ben McBean, who ended up being best friends with Prince Harry as an injured guy, and on telly a lot. And then I flew home. I had an exam at the Royal Colleges, so I was studying when I was in Afghan, and I put my bag down in the living room, and I turned to the TV, and the next time I saw John was his face was on the BBC News as killed in action. And that was just, you know, heartbreaking. I'd just literally flown back, and he was alive when I left, and then he was killed at Kajaki Dam. 2 of the guys I went through commando course with, there was a guy who was a diffuser of bombs, and he was on track to be the most prolific diffuser of bombs ever. And he was a lovely guy. He went for the commando course, and he was killed. He made a mistake. He was too tired. He made a mistake, and his wife's very high profile. You know, and so I think that does shape you. I wouldn't advise going through those processes, but everyone has traumas in their life, you know, and that shape them as they go through. And some of the times, you know, you don't have to go in the military, but you can. On the MBA course, there's a lot of people there who are well travelled throughout the world. They struggled with certain circumstances in life that were mind-blowing, like being kidnapped in Venezuela. One person told this story, and you think, Jesus. You know, so everyone don't have to be dramatic, but everyone has a trauma that they can fall back on to say, look, are we really making the most of life here? Yeah. Is this business making the most of and my job really is to take the pressure with my clients of the business off them and advise them and calm them so that they can have time with their family and whatever passions they have. That's what I try and do.
What are your passions? What is your work-life balance? What are your hobbies?
Well, it's good. So yeah, a couple of days of teeth, and then I do my consultancy a couple of days a week, and then I have a boat down near the beach, and then I was doing road cycling for a while, but I haven't done it for a little while. I was meant to be going to Mallorca, but I didn't go in the end. And so yeah, I do road cycling, and I have the children are now 12 and 10. So my boy plays cricket on a Friday, Saturdays football, Sundays rugby when they cross over in the season, and my daughter is big into netball and she does horse riding. So you get to the point where you don't really.
Other than passion's being a dad.
Yeah, awesome. It's a little bit. Yeah,
awesome.
It's a little, and I get a lot of joy out of it. Like I said, my father was killed in a car crash when I was 8. So my boy, he's just turned 10, so he's 9, and so I really value being with him you know, and he was born in Devon, but he supports Welsh rugby. So, and I take photos of him, obviously, and he was wearing a little Welsh top, and I see myself. You know, I see myself at that age, and I go, oh, I'm going to spend as much time with him because I didn't have a dad.
He's getting something that you didn't get.
I didn't have a father, My mum raised my brother and I, and until my stepfather came along, he was very influential. It's around about GCSEs, but I didn't have a father figure.
I also lost my dad when I was 8. So
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, Flo.
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not the nicest club to be in, but
No.
yes.
No, it's not. No. You tried.
But it does show why, like, you know, where our whole thinking for retirement as a society, I'll do this so I can retire at this stage. We don't know if we'll get that time. We just don't know. And that's why I keep mentioning that I have a 7-day work week and a 7-day weekend. Now, balance tipped a little bit, but actually every day I try to... We're lucky we're in a profession where we can structure it to spend time with family. And my dad growing up was in a corporate job. And he'd be out the house before we woke up and back after we went to sleep, and we're tired on the weekends. And actually one of the things I was saying to Flo is I make sure that I spend time with Lilia every day, because actually it's not the grand gestures on the weekends, but it's the being there for bath time every day or having breakfast together every day that actually makes a difference. And if as a practice owner, I think if you're out before the kids wake up and home after they're gone to sleep, then why are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. And you could be in any profession then. And I think that, you know, we've obviously got 2 examples here of, that relationship is really important as parents, but it's easy to lose track of that when you're trying to win private dentistry awards, or you're trying to enter that race, and you're trying to be and you're looking over your shoulder. When I say it's literally like playing golf, you're in charge of your own game, and it's the patients that walk through the door. It's such a cliche, but everyone forgets it. They're too much about status, and status doesn't really matter. You know, it is the time with your family, and those they talk about 5 relationships, and you're defined by your 5 relationships, your closest 5 relationships in your life, and that's happiness. Happiness is love. All the longevity stories talk about that. So how do our small businesses help us create an environment where we have time to go running, to go to enjoy ourselves, so we're in a good place, so that we can enjoy time with our family and our friends. And it is a cliche, and it sounds very dramatic, but that makes owning a practice a lot less stressful.
Well, I have taken a lot from this chat, so thank you so much for coming on. But before you go, you have to we've got the dental quickfire quiz that we ask all our guests so that they can enter and earn their virtual dental pearl. Sadly, there's not a real one to give you. But which is your favourite procedure to do?
Indirect restorations, funnily enough. My patient base is in that generation, and I've now got back into it, and I'm enjoying dentistry more than I've ever done. And like I say, I want to be qualified, so I'm going to the Londec, I'm going to the Dental courses, and I'm probably going to go do Tipton's course as well. Restorative course,
Nice. What is your favourite scrub colour to wear?
The dark blue of Dartmoor Dental.
Nice. With no context, which is your favourite tooth?
Canine.
Nice.
Right, you got to pick right or left and upper or lower.
Upper left.
Oh, nice. Okay. And if you were just leaving school now, what would you want to do with the knowledge you have now?
If I could see properly out of my right eye, I'd like to be a fighter pilot. Surprise, surprise.
Nice.
Cool.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And I think everyone's going to take a lot from this chat.
Well, it's been lovely to meet you, and thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you guys again.
Ali, why did you invest in the Navident dynamic navigation system?
It's incredible. It brings our safety and accuracy up for patients. Here's a tracker that we use, and thanks to Rob from the Dental Imaging Company, it's been great support and so easy to set up. I see why so many people go to him for their digital imaging, 3D or 2-dimensional, and also all their surgical supplies like Ustamed screws. Rob's been incredible, and I'd highly recommend working with him.
Ali, can you name everything in the practice that's made by W&H?
Ooh, off the top of my head, all of our handpieces, our sterilization equipment, my implant motor, the Piezomed, they're an incredible company to work with because they're an Austrian company that focus on hygiene, and we know from studies that patients care most about hygiene. To top it all off, the support we get from them is amazing. They don't actually supply the equipment, but they provide the support. Now that's true support. Crown Dental burrs have a rota system. And what that means is I have the same burr box every time with the same burrs numbered. I ask my nurse for the number of burr rather than having to remember the name of it. And it also means that when I need a new burr, we go to the box which has this card, and if we are running out, my nurse can just scan the QR code and order the same one. So we never have problems with inconsistencies with burr boxes or burrs. Thank you very much for implementing this for me, Paul. I love it. And the other thing I love is that Paul's a problem solver. So I worked with him to curate this alveoplasty set, which he has such great knowledge for all of his burrs. And it means that we have everything we need for full arch surgery. So whether you have a problem with your set and need this set, or you have a problem that you need help solving, Crown Dental Burrs will help you do it.